How much fresh cash did we make?
Fresh cash?
Yes.
Well, zero. Zero if you're talking about U.S. currency. People didn't really seem interested in spending any of that.
That's okay. So when they run out of the booze, they'll come back in and they'll have to buy more Paddy's dollars.
Right.
Keeping it moving.
That is assuming, of course, that they will come back here and drink.
They will. They will, because we'll redistribute these to the shanties, thus ensuring them coming back in, keeping the money moving.
Well, no, but if we just redistribute these, then people will continue to drink for free.
Okay.
How does this work, Mac?
The money keeps moving in a circle.
But we don't have any money. All we have is this. How does this work,
I
dude?
don't know. I thought
What? I thought you were on top of this.
You're the one that came up with the plan.
Did I come up with this
Last night, dude.
Oh.
With the DMB power card and
I blacked out that night.
Shit, dude, I've been following your lead.
Oh, Jesus. Ah, shit.
Okay, so we have no money and no inventory. There's still something we can do. That's still a business somehow.
All right, everybody, welcome back to a very merry new year of the Muskies on Tap podcast, episode 86. First of the year dropping here and dropping with some heat. We're getting Steve Genson on the podcast. We just got done talking to him and had an awesome time. We chatted about some great topics, great stories. He's been in the game for a long time, 25 years guiding, fishing for even longer than that, been through some pretty insane bites, tournament fishing, filming with Keys Outdoors, all that stuff. And, you know, we barely scratched the surface on some of the things. We're for sure going to have to get him back on another time. And so, yeah, let's introduce the other Mott members on here tonight. Got none other than my brother, Max. Max, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. 2025, baby. Let's go. It'll be a great year.
That's right.
I'm happy to be here. I got my buddy Brian down there smirking.
For you.
Yeah, good to be back with you fellas. It's been a couple weeks. We had a nice little hiatus there. But yeah, great interview with Steve. Just all around awesome musky nut. So many good stories. Just, you know, has kind of seen it all. So it's just awesome to chat with a gentleman like that and kind of be able to hear all of it firsthand, and hopefully you guys enjoyed as much as we did. But without further ado, it's been a bit. Brian, how you been, buddy? What's new?
I've been good, man. Been good. Plugging along over here. Had a good long break over the holidays. Yeah, just a lot of work from here. Yeah, awesome talk with Steve. I always like hearing their stories, whether it's, you know, their triumph in their tournaments or the hardships. Hardships make me feel good too, knowing that, you know,
Right.
even when stuff's going terribly on the water, it can turn around in an instant. Even for the best of the best in the industry like Steve. So yeah, I had a really great time chatting with Steve. Can't wait to share that with you guys. Gus, you've been out on the ice a little bit lately?
Yeah, been out a little bit. Ice conditions are phenomenal. With the lack of snow, which is a bummer for the snowmobile community, but the ice community is thriving because of it. I think most places are basically, you know, it's not all just, you know, the same everywhere. Just because you got 12 inches of ice up here doesn't mean every size lake's got that. You know, everybody keep that in mind. And not all ice is created equally, but we do have some of the best, you know, clear, dark ice that's just like pristine. It's almost so clear that you can see the bottoms of like the cracks that are happening as it's, you know, expanding and stuff. And it looks spooky because you're like, oh, we're not even standing on that much. And then you drill a hole and we got like 10 to 12 and you're like, oh, wait, we're good. Bring the UTV out, snowmobile, whatever. It's great. And I really haven't been out a ton, and fishing's been all right for me so far. But you know, I'm hoping it sets off a little bit. I know this massive cold snap, I don't know how it fared for most species, but you know, some of them are still biting, of course. They always do, just not as well as others sometimes, but it's been all right. It's keeping me getting through the winter, I guess. So that's good.
That's good. All right. Well, we'll catch you guys on the backside of this interview. We hope you enjoy Steve Genson.
All right, here on the line, we got Steve Genson from Genson Fish Hunts Guide Service out of Northwest Wisconsin, kind of the Hayward area. And we're really excited to have him on here. I know he's been a featured guest on the Backlash podcast many a times. And we've been always talking about getting you on, and I'm happy we finally are here in the off season to get to know you, get to know your history, and kind of chat over some things of all sorts. I know you've been on Keys Outdoors episodes, you've had your hand in some PMTT events here and there, and you've been guiding for, if I'm not mistaken, it's your 25th year.
A long time.
Long times. So
Yeah.
anyways, Steve, how you doing tonight?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it. Yeah, all of the above. In fact, I think I shared a podcast with you, Gus, on the road rules with Greg Thomas once. So,
That's right. Yeah.
yeah, we've shared a little podcast time before, but first time with you guys here. So that's cool. Appreciate that. Yeah, my name is Steve Genson, Jenson's Fish Hunts Guide Service. I've been guiding up here in the Hayward area. Like I said, 25 years. Primarily muskies, but I do a little bit of everything, including the ice fishing too, which is what we're into right now. Um, so yeah, it's been cool. Fish tournaments for over 20 years, kind of been there, done that now, getting a little bit older, a little bit slower, and leaving that up to you young bucks. But spent a lot of time doing that and a lot of time behind the camera with Mike Keys, like you mentioned, doing Keys Outdoors for many, many years. In fact, Mike filmed his very first musky TV show with me. A lot of people may not realize that, but yeah, I was there from the very beginning. Mike and I have tons of stories over the years, a lot of things we've done and shared. And now I'm primarily just guiding here in the Hayward area. Like I say, focusing primarily on the muskies, but do a little smallmouth, do a little bit of walleye. And after 25 years, you have a lot of repeat clients. So I'm fishing with a lot of good buddies this day and age, which is cool. And I've watched a lot of my clients have children, have their children grow up, and their children having children. So kind of cool stuff. And have some really great clients that have been with me for many, many years. My oldest client is going to be 84 this year, and he just booked 6 days today as we speak.
Nice.
So that's awesome. He's coming
Awesome.
back. We when we parted ways this fall, I was like, you just let me know how you're feeling, no rush, and when you decide in your brain that you want to come on back, we'll do it, and I'll definitely take you every time until you don't feel like you could do it. So that was cool. But yeah, now we're into the ice fishing and doing that right now. Fishing's been really good. I think you guys do a little bit of that too. Ice conditions are awesome here in Hayward. Got a nice solid foot of ice on most of my lakes and getting around really well. We have almost no snow and some nice cold temperatures. So it's going to be a really nice year compared to last year, which we hardly be able to get out at all. So excited about that.
So, Steve, real quick, are you doing guided ice fishing trips?
Oh, for sure. Yep.
Okay. And what does that kind of look like? Because I'm not too familiar with it. I've never done it. I know it's, not every guide that goes out for muskie is going to do any sort of ice fishing guided trips.
Yeah,
So
right.
what is that
So
whole
I'm one of
package
we don't have a whole lot of ice fishing guides here in Hayward. There's a handful of guys that do it. I've been doing it just as long as I've been guiding for open water as well. And basically, I have all the gear for anybody needs it. I do heated portable shacks. I'm a mobile guide. I don't generally leave shacks out on the lake. We run and gun, move around a lot. We're blessed here, like you guys are over in your area, to have multiple lakes. I fish many lakes throughout the course of the winter, so I can hop and spread out the pressure, spread out the fun. Always looking for, the best bite, obviously. And we're pretty blessed. We have some really awesome pan fishing, so a lot of my trips will be focused primarily on bluegill and pike during the mornings, and then the afternoons we usually go look for suspended crappie. I can handle pretty good groups, up to 8 people. It's kind of like my max for me. I can handle a few more if needed, but 4 to 8 is usually what I handle. So it's a lot of work. I prefer the open water fishing by far, especially as I get older. And I do a lot of fishing in Florida come the end of the winter. And the more I do that, the less I like drilling holes through the ice. But that being said, we have a great time. The fishing's been good. The conditions are awesome. Some winters we don't have the good conditions. Like last winter, we had real thin ice. A couple winters before that, we had tremendous amounts of snow. So you just never know what you're going to get. So it's not the all day, every day affair like the summer fishing is, but we certainly get plenty of time on the ice. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I can't complain at all about the ice conditions this year, and I like to hear that you're more of a run and gun style ice fisherman. Max and I and Brian as well. We ice fishing was kind of the latest thing that we've started to really get more into because, you kind of have to with where we all live and such.
Right.
I mean, we used to just ice fish in front of the place, like one spot every once in a while, like 3 times a winter, and that was it.
Yeah.
And then now that we've been running around a bunch, we've seen the and Max can attest, we've seen a few spots like crappie spots and stuff that they don't exactly produce every day or even every year. And
Yep.
going around and I would I mean I love the idea of a permanent shack. Cool having one of those little things,
Right. Right.
but if it stinks and the fishing
Yeah.
just stinks because it's the winter, they
Then
don't
you're stuck,
move a lot. Yeah.
and honestly, the reason I dislike them the most is putting them on and off, especially getting them off if you have conditions where they get frozen in and or you have
Ooh.
melting and refreezing. And yeah, I've seen some guys with some real nightmares as far as getting that stuff off. And the portable stuff is so comfortable and so quick. There's really no need for it anymore.
Hmm.
And in this day of age of being ahead of the fish and moving around a lot and fishing different lakes. It's amazing. I'll go to a lake one day and they're popping, the next day they're not, and sometimes just hopping across the road is all it takes. So yeah, just being portable definitely increases our catch and makes it a lot more fun too.
So, Steve, you're 25, a guiding up in the Hayward area. Has the whole career been in Hayward area for guiding?
Yeah, for the most part, I did do probably about 10 years where I would pop over to Lake Mille Lacs when it was so good through I would say the late 90s through mid 2000s. And spent a fair amount of time over there when I was not married and a single man with nothing to do but go musky hunting. Um, and it was pretty amazing. I got to see some of the most amazing musky fishing that I think man has ever seen. When musky really came on the map on Mille Lacs, it was unbelievable. And a reason to go there. And I live about 2 hours away, 2.5 hours, depending on where I go to the lake. So it was an easy run. And I would go over there and spend a week at a time or whatever. Get clients lined up for numerous days and spend a bunch of time over there. And we filmed a lot there too with Mike Keys, tons actually. So that's basically the only other place I've spent a ton of time guiding, done a little bit down in southern Wisconsin, but I definitely prefer just to stick around here in Hayward. And to make
Hmm.
money for me, putting on the miles is a challenge. And, hats off to the nomadic guides of the world. There are a few of them still out there, but it's challenging if you're traveling all that much to make it profitable.
When a bite's hot, a bite's hot. Got to take advantage of it, but um
Yeah, for
and
sure.
and and you and Hayward have, quite a few options of lakes, which is, makes it kind of hard to want to leave the area. Like, I think about that too, because you're about 2.5 hours from me, and it would be kind of the same thing for you. Like me coming all the way over to you, I'm gonna pass a lot of bodies of water
Right.
just to get there. So
Yep.
it's like, well, what
To
am
go
I
do the same thing,
to
right?
go do the exact same thing? But
Yeah.
one kind of side question with that, with having a lot of lakes, and since you've been fishing them for so long, has I mean, you obviously don't have to don't even name any, but like, have there some that have just stood the test of time that have always been good? Have you seen that, or are you kind of bouncing around and figuring out that some lakes
Boy,
are on like a
I wish
rotation
I
of
could say
being
that
good?
was true, but yeah, our lakes here are always on a rotation, brother. And there's some that I guess you could say are a little more consistent and solid than others, but there's some that used to be amazing that are extremely challenging right now. So I do bop around. I do fish a lot of different lakes for that reason. Try to stay on the places where the bite is the best, where the year classes are the best. In recent years, we've seen reduction in stocking, of course, and a lot of our lakes rely on that. So I would say we're seeing lower numbers in a few places, higher numbers in some others. So staying on the pulse of that is always a key. And whatever reason, and I'm sure you guys see this too, when you fish multiple lakes through the course of a year, some years one lake just pops, and then the next year it doesn't, and then it may come right back. It's not
Mm-hmm.
that the fish aren't there, but there's just situations or conditions that line up where the fish aren't feeding well when we're there, or whatever that recipe is. I can't say I can always figure it out. I usually just opt for looking for a different lake if I'm running into difficult conditions. So that's generally my recipe. But um, there's definitely some lakes, here that used to be amazing for me. And whether it's pressure, which we have a little bit more, but I still don't feel like it's amazingly hard pressure here. Um, Maybe a little bit less fish. Maybe the fish have been caught a few more times. I don't know. But I certainly do see peaks and valleys. And I think I've written about that for Muskie Hunter back in the day, where you see peaks and
Mm-hmm.
valleys in these fisheries where they go up and they go down. And some of it we can maybe tell you why that happened, but a lot of it you can't. It's just nature and how things go. So just staying
Mm-hmm.
ahead of that pulse is generally my best plan of attack, rather than trying to grind through hard fishing, which some guys do, and obviously if you live on a lake or your boat's on a lift on a lake or you just love this lake, then I know lots of people that have that here. A lot of times they struggle through longer periods of time where I'm hopping around and find something that's happening at least somewhere.
So I'm a big fan of origin stories in the muskie world. Like we kind of talk sometimes about, when people got bitten by the musky bug, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about some of those earlier days, and I kind of want to ask you, like, when would you say, how that all happened? Like, when did muskies kind of come into your life? How did it happen? Where did it happen? When did you kind of know that, like, hey, this is going to be more than just a side hobby for me, when, this
Yeah.
is going to be a career? I mean, how did that all kind of unfold for you?
Yeah, kind of an interesting story. I have a degree from fisheries biology from the University of Wisconsin Stevens Point. When I graduated college, I actually went up to Alaska, captained a commercial fishing boat, did a red salmon season up there for a whole season.
Nice.
And when I came back, I took a job managing a yellow perch fish farm. And I did that for about 4 years. And during that period, I was starting to fish really heavily. I had caught a few muskies before, but some of my college buddies were really into it and started catching them and catching some nice fish. And I've always been a hunter, so I enjoyed the hunting aspect of musky fishing, thus the name Fish Hunts Guide Service. And just really, really got intrigued by the fish. As I was doing that fish farming, I had kind of a flexible schedule, so I started guiding a little bit part time. And the reason that I started guiding was because of my brother, who passed away on us in 2005. And he started guiding about mid 90s, I'd say about 95, 96. And by 98, I was definitely wanting to be in the boat like my big brother. And we also kind of realized early on that, maybe we had a little bit of a talent for it. Obviously, everybody can go fishing and catch fish, but it seemed like through our efforts and really not taught by anybody, we're pretty much self-taught. It's not like I went fishing with a bunch of different guides when I was young. I absolutely did not. In fact, I never fished with a guide before I was a guide, if you can believe that. I did fish with a few old timers that kind of mentored me a little bit, but once we started catching a few fish over 40 inches, I got super addicted to it. Like I would spend almost every minute fishing when I wasn't working, to the point where I was like, all right, I need to at least figure out how to balance this out and make some money doing it, or figure out a healthier way to continue working, because I was definitely having conflicts of interest. So in the year 2000, I opted to move up here to where I'm sitting at right now, which is our deer hunting cabin we bought in 1990, and moved here full time, and made the leap and said, I'm just going to fish and see if I can make this a go. and many years lean. In fact, I helped out at some bait shops here in Hayward and stuff while I was doing that. But made the leap, and it worked out really well. We had awesome fishing and did very well. And at that time, started fishing the PMTT. Also, at that time, started fishing with Mike Keys, and all those things kind of started together. We were young and excited and just wanted to get after it. And Mike was young and excited and was just starting his filming career. He was primarily a hunting documentary filmer, kind of doing some, hired out filming for some other shows and things like that. And his very first year that he started, one of my old timers that mentored me, a gentleman named Rody Brecky, went on a film shoot with those guys out to Devil's Lake. And they did a show with the Perch Ice Guide Service out there, ice fishing show. I want to say even Larry Smith was involved back then. And Brody said, well, if you ever want to film a muskie show, Mike, you should get a hold of these Genson kids. That's all they do. They live and breathe it. That's all they do. It's just fish, fish, fish. So honestly, Mike got a hold of me, I think, the day he got home. And the rest is history. We ended up hooking up pretty soon after that. We did a show up here in Hayward on a local lake, Sand Lake here. Caught 4 fish in a matter of a couple of days. I think we saw 15. Mike never made a cast. He had never even musky fished before, so he was just kind of observing and watching and filming it all. And it wasn't long after that he wanted to become part of that. And the next year, we filmed another musky show down in Deer Lake, which is down just south of here, about an hour and a half, which was one of my brother's home lake. He lived in River Falls at that time, and had another great shoot. And the relationships blossomed just from there. And did a lot of fishing down around Mike's area and did a lot of fishing up here. And then we started just traveling about the country and hooking up with a lot of awesome people. And there's too many to even name here to be fair, but fished all over the place. And while doing that, building my guide service and just learning about muskies. And when you get to fish all over the place, you learn at a faster rate. You realize there's no one way to catch them. You fish them with them a lot more of an open mind. And I think the tournament thing does that too. There's always somebody who catches them. Doesn't matter how tough the fishing is. There's generally a way to catch them. There's a way to do it. And that's a really cool learning experience too. So that was a mouthful, but that's kind of how I got going. And I'm still here today. People still want to go fishing with me, and we're still catching muskies.
Unreal
That's
story.
awesome.
I always I kind of think back, before the social media age, how people kind of link up in the muskie community, it's
So
just
right.
different
Huge.
deal, right?
Such a different deal. I to redo what I had to do to build my clientele was extraordinarily difficult. To do it through bait shops and pictures on the counter and cards on the counter and telling people what you're doing and word of mouth. Locals, telling people that, hey, if you want a guy, this is who you should go with. And it's a much longer process to do that than today's day and age, and I'm jealous to some extent to some of these younger guys that can build a business in a couple of years, what took me a decade to do, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Just a different world. I think it's making fishing a little different too. Obviously, we have a lot of more educated anglers, a lot of avid anglers, and that's really changed in the last 5 years, 10 years. Back 20 years ago, there was hardly anybody fishing here, and we had a lot of dumb fish that were not easy to catch, but easier. And they were kind of all to ourselves, especially at certain times. So that certainly has changed.
So you're
Mhm.
also kind of going off your story there. You're kind of responsible for getting Mike Keys, it sounds like, addicted to
Into
the,
them.
talk about muskie bug.
Well,
Sounds like you're the one
absolutely.
that
And
planted the seed.
if you guys ever have Mike on or talk with Mike on, he would tell you that exact story.
Yeah.
I'm responsible. I'm sorry, buddy. But congrats to Mike. He's made a heck of a career out of it too, and um, it was a building deal. And originally, when we first started filming, it wasn't just muskies. We were doing all kinds of fishing and ice fishing and hunting. And Mike at heart is a avid hunter, loves hunting. In fact, I think at the time that he started our first show, which is Living the Outdoors, he had 7 hunting patents in the hunting outdoor industry, including heat seats and tree stands and things like that. So that's where his heart was. The fishing just kind of gravitated from there. Um, and as we got more into it, like you say, the musky bug just bit him. And he got to the point where he didn't want to do anything else. And sponsorship wise, he wanted to really focus on some certain companies, which we did, and that really worked out for him and for the whole production of it. And I think it was a good outlet for a lot of these younger musky companies and companies on the build back in the day to get the exposure, to get out into the world. Back 20 years ago, muskies wasn't a thing. We were such a small industry. It's grown exponentially in recent years. And I think a lot of that has had to do with, having the right people out there kind of explaining and showing what the sport is all about.
Well, I mean, that's an interesting point because it's like back when you guys started, the muskie community or industry, I guess you could say as a whole is smaller. So when you guys were filming these early episodes, like, was there ever a thought that kind of came across your head? Like, are people gonna, be receptive to this? Are people gonna watch this? Or, are people gonna like this?
Absolutely. And that's why we obviously did the multi-species things for many years. And uh, we just kind of got a feel through it all that the muskie was definitely like the underutilized thing. There wasn't many guys doing it. Really no muskie specific TV shows at that time. Sure, and Fisherman would do a segment here and there and blah, blah, blah. Babe Winkamo would do it here and there. But there was nobody doing muskie specific. Muskie hunting started a few years later, just down the road. So there was another outlet for people to be exposed to muskie fishing and see how different it was and how cool the fish are and how different they behave and the cool things that they do. Muskies can be pretty visual, as you guys know, with the boat side strikes and topwater strikes and just the way they behave. There's not a lot of fish that do that. And also back then, they had this mystique of the fish of 10,000 casts, which, they still are. They're very difficult fish to catch, but we've mainstreamed them hugely in recent years, meaning that, most people can go out and encounter muskie and catch them. And it's not quite as a rare oddity as such a special thing that it was back in the day. But now there's a lot more people that can do it. So, and a lot more people know about it through this exposure. And timing is, everything. It's just kind of seemed like when it was going to happen. And now I feel like, I don't know if it's continuing to explode like it did through the last 10 years. But obviously we still have tons of people that love the sport and a lot of people that maybe don't want to go do it all, but sure like to watch it happen too. Musky fishing's a lot of work to put all the effort in to get out. And you said that, right? So that leads into guiding, why you should hire a guide.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, they can watch it on TV. It's cool. It's exciting. It's a big fish that most people don't get the opportunity to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why those really, and I know I've been talking a lot, Gus Brent, so I'll shut up after this, but I think that's one of those things that like your early episode, like all Keys Outdoors episodes are great, obviously. I mean, we've been huge fans and love watching his stuff, but like those early episodes, I think, like guys like us three relate so hard to those. Like, Mike released that like Vault series on YouTube, and you're pretty much in every episode of those. Like, they're kind of more back in the day episodes of filming, and like you guys are younger guys and like the excitement level is just so relatable because like, obviously Gus, Brian, and I, we started this, podcast thing what now we're going on like a year and a half, but us three have been in the boat fishing together for forever. It feels like,
Yeah.
we've had roots in northern Wisconsin for 15 to 17, 18 years now, chasing these things, and 18 years.
18 or 19, yeah.
And like, so when you watch those episodes of the old Key shows and your guys' excitement and everything and how you do it, it's like we related to all that stuff because, when we started trying to chase this fish, like we're going out trying different lakes and trying different stuff. And like, you just can't replicate that feeling of excitement when like it works out. And, you feel like the coolest person in the world when you're kind of up and coming and young and whatever. I mean, it's just so I just love watching those old episodes. Like I said, all the new stuff is great too, but those old ones just got a special place watching that stuff. It's just so cool.
Yeah, the enthusiasm was there, and honestly, being brothers and whatnot, you guys kind of remind me of us, back in the day, and just a younger version and on a different, not a different path, but a different time in the industry, and it's a little harder, I think, now to stand out. Back then there wasn't as many of us, so it was a little easier to stand out, and um, we had the platform, right, to be in front of a lot of viewers, and uh, we had enough talent to catch a fish and replicate it and do it again and again. And that led into the tournament success and that led into the guiding success. And I do feel like for me, having done it so long, the learning never stops, right? But um, there's a lot of the same happening now,
Hmm.
same lakes, same patterns. I know where I think I know where to look or what to expect, and so you predict that way. So the learning is a little bit less. It's not quite as stimulating as it was when you're first learning the lakes and first learning all these techniques and first developing your repertoire, so to speak, of how to go about the whole process of this deal. Um, but it's now I'm taking other people that can't do that necessarily and certainly don't have the time. And
Hmm.
like us mentioned, certainly don't have the money to invest in the boat and the gear and then have all of the time to go learn all of these lakes and then learn all of the techniques that need to be applied at all these proper times. I think about it and it's exhausting just thinking about it, right? It is a hard sport. Not for the weak at heart. If you need immediate gratitude or immediate success, don't try musky fishing. Because you're probably not going to find it. It's a challenge. And even when you're good, even when you've done it for a long time and you've caught thousands of them and won lots of tournaments, there's plenty of days where you're scratching your head going, God dang it. These things
Hmm.
they're hard to catch, man. So um, that's why I love them. They're a challenge. You're putting the puzzle together every day. But now my thrill, instead of for me, is definitely through my clients. If I never reeled in another one, wouldn't be the end of the world. But I really, really enjoy taking people that don't have the means or the abilities to do it on their own. And they can come and hop in my boat, and sometimes in the matter of a few hours, we can show them a really good time and show them an experience that maybe would have taken them years and years to do on their own. So that's the fun part of it now.
Yeah, and that's awesome to hear, and that's the definition of a great guide. One that is totally just going to step up and put always the clients first and make sure that they're having a good time, catering it for them because it's their day. They're the ones that are paying the money. I just quickly took out a calculator. I mean, even if you save up and don't have 20 extra lures at $25, you can put 500 towards a guide trip and learn a lot more than just staring at, 20 more plastic lures on your in your tackle box that you might actually never use, which you know, easy for me to say, and then there we are having just a total
Yep.
ton of lures, but um what I was thinking about, I don't know which route I wanted to go to. I was gonna ask something about tournaments, but also um
I can't wait to get into
or
that.
yeah, tournaments, but I was gonna ask something actually first about just like you in the Hayward area and guiding. I know you said you get, yeah, the big excitement from clients and whatnot. Um, are you kind of at the point where you're not really exploring new lakes? Can you? Have you explored them
So
all
yeah,
over
yeah,
there?
that's a good question. Yes, I still am always looking for something new and different.
Okay,
Sometimes
yeah.
it's looping back to things that you haven't been to in many, many years. Um, Not as much as I once did, just because I have explored a lot, most of it. Um, but I certainly do continue to hop around. And one thing that's affecting me right now is low water. I don't know if you guys would probably have some of that happen in there, but really low water. So some of my smaller flowages and river stretches and
Mm,
things that I like to fish are just not available and haven't been for a couple of years. Seeing the fishing change in those places because of that, I feel. So I would say that moves me around probably a lot here recently. But I'm still always got the ear out for the little hidden gem, and we have a few. And I will drive as much as an hour, hour and a half in a radius from here in Hayward to get on lakes that aren't overly pressured or under the radar or out of the tourist circle. I do all of that. Still do. Have always
Hmm.
done that. I think it's part of my success, our success here in the region is to find places that aren't everybody isn't at. I still do go to the Chippewa Flowage, like everybody hears the Chippewa Flowage, right?
Hmm.
It is not the only lake in Hayward,
Right.
which is what everybody in the world thinks.
Or
You're right. There's a lot of water here, but so many people just live on the chip, and that kind of goes to the one lake deal. A lot of people will live and die on that place when it's not happening, and there's years and times where it's not the place to be, and there's years and times when it is the place to be. So figuring that out and trying to keep your finger on it keeps me moving around too. But there's always a few little hidden gems and some places that I still would like to get to. Time is limited,
Hmm.
not having too many days off through the season where I can just but I do have clients that are absolutely willing to go on a little adventure sometimes, and I found some of my awesome lakes that way. Like, hey man, let's I keep hearing about this. You up for a little ride? And most of them will trust you, and sometimes it does
That's
work out
good.
really well.
That's good. Yeah, we saw firsthand on the Chippewa flowage last year. We're like, okay, it's a giant lake. However many acres is it? 20, 25,000 or something like
Yeah, it's
that?
like 15,
Or
17,
15,
depending on how
15,
yeah, how
17.
big
We're
it
like, okay,
is.
how can it be that busy or crowded? And it
Isn't
was
it
pretty damn
unbelievable?
crowded. It's crazy. Like
Yeah.
I wouldn't expect it. It's
And
beautiful,
when were
of
you
course.
here? It was September?
September, late September,
Yeah, so like
great colors.
you're after the tourist thing. So think about it
Yeah.
in July and August.
Yeah,
Oof.
It
jeez.
it gets
But
abused
it's
that way, and that's
all
not just
fishing too.
fishermen. Not
Oh,
at
really?
all. Even in the summer, we're getting the
Wow.
pontooners now, and all that stuff. So, but like you
Wow.
say, in September when you were there, pretty much everyone there is fishing. So, the
Hmm.
place does get its pressure, and even as big as it is, there's definitely times I want to be somewhere else for sure.
I feel like
I
it'd be
got
like sacrilegious to see a wakeboard boat out on the Chippewa
it
Flowage.
would be.
I know, and even the pontooners now, they never used to be out there, and they're pulling skiers and sitting on the beaches everywhere. And
Weird because
like
there's no
not that long
cabins really
ago,
there.
it was not that. It was just fishing, and
Couldn't
people were scared to
imagine.
run there, and
Huh.
Yeah.
for good reason. There's plenty of stuff to hit out there, and they hit it. Trust me.
Yeah.
I see it. But it seems like there's a little less fear in the general public, and they are definitely ripping roaring around out there. So,
They
and
don't
not
have the
just
graphs
there.
and gizmos
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, geez, man, I don't know. Times are changing.
for sure. I got one more thing, Max, if you want to go into tournaments here or we can do that after that because I know I for sure want to go into that. And I really want to ask you this, Steve, and I don't know if I for sure have never asked anybody else on the podcast. And specifically, I want to ask you because you're in Wisconsin, just like us. You've been guiding a long time. Um, and it's kind of something that I honestly, I shouldn't say fear, but it's something that's just like maybe inevitably going to happen as a guide as I'm showing people water. Are there a few places that you've maybe regretted guiding people on too much, possibly,
Um,
or and then seeing the evidence of a fishery going downhill and then maybe it bounces back, or you start seeing more people musky fishing it, and you're like, was it me or what happened, or is it just word getting out, or kind of anything like that?
all of the above, right? So yeah, tough question and a legitimate one. Um, have been on TV, Keys Outdoors, and um,
Hmm.
YouTubing with Jeff, and I would have to say I'm not part of the blame, right? There are certain
Right.
lakes that I avoid a little less or a little more, fish a little less. Um, due to pressure, due to the educated musky public finding out, being there, blah blah blah. Um, but I'm not the only one here. There's plenty of other YouTubers around, plenty of other
Right.
guides. it's kind of a sacrifice that you make when you decide that you want to do this, and it's a challenging one for me even to this day. Um, Even more so with like the ice fishing, because dudes are
Ooh,
going to come
yeah.
back. Dudes are going to come back, and
Yeah.
dudes are going to come back with their buddies. And no matter what you do, you can't protect it all. It's impossible. And
Right. Not that
I'm
saying like
very
water is yours,
right,
obviously
but
shared.
I'm aware of my effect. I would say, because I am bringing a lot of people to certain places. On um, I'm aware. I'm very aware of who I have and things like that. And at this point, most of my clients are awesome people that really don't fish that much on their own. Most of my clients are people that just fish with me, which is the ideal client, right? Um,
Hmm.
that's the client I'm looking for. The young guy who's got all the gear, who just wants to learn all your stuff, yeah, I'll take him, but it's not. Those are the days that are a little bit harder on the brain, right? Um,
Hmm.
and I'm certainly aware of, how much I use a place, how often I'm there, um, how much I get seen there, all of those things, um, certainly are a factor, but you have, in the end, you have to go make your living and you have to continue to fish. And um, I would say there's times where, my pressure and my client's pressure certainly affected the bite at times where it was like I had to start
Yeah.
moving around just because I'm fishing the same spots too much, right?
Yep.
Um, so you learn that. I don't fish much on my own, especially on stuff that I know, just because I don't need to go catch them. I want to save them for somebody who's going to pay me or who's coming to pay me and who is expecting to have good luck. I'd rather save those fish or save that possibility of that fish for those guys. If I do go out on my own, it's exploring something new or maybe going back to a lake that I hadn't fished in a long time or fishing something that I, haven't been focusing on, things like that. Um, so you kind of learn that too. When you're young, you want to fish, 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 right? And you guys are probably still in that mode, and it's awesome. I
Hmm.
don't hesitate to do it, but you get to a point where you learn, well, maybe I don't need to burn that 4 footer that I know was there, and I've just been harassing until I caught it. I could have, left it and maybe gotten somebody else to catch it. But now in this day and age, you don't know who's coming down the weed line after you, who's going to catch it. So um, it's just
Right.
it's an elastic thing that doesn't have right answers or wrong answers. Let's just say
Right.
that. But being aware of it is certainly something that I do have. And moving pressure around is certainly something that I do, and it's just inevitable.
Hmm.
We're I'm thankful that I honestly most days I don't hardly see another boat, or if I do, they're not around me. I talk to my guide buddies on Green Bay where they have 15 boats within casting distance of them. I
Seen
couldn't fish
that.
under that environment, and I honestly did do that in the Mille Lacs back in the day. There would be times where there would be so many boats it would blow your guys' minds, fishing the same stuff and everybody catching. So it works out to some point, but
Hmm.
when the fishing starts to get challenging and they're still all there and you're all battling for those couple bites is when it becomes not fun, and guys don't like each other and they're fighting on the water and cutting each other off and all that good stuff. So I prefer to be on lakes where I don't have another boat around me, and I often move around just to be that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very
It's a
well
good
said.
question. Good question, guy. And I
Yeah.
honestly think like, if you got, as a successful guy like yourself, like I do feel like you're always going to be one step ahead. We've talked about trying to, the detriment to copying a pattern or following people in the musky world. And sure, it can maybe work out once or twice, but I think for the most part, the people that are finding bites, even if a spot, like you said, gets overpressured or burned, you're going to be on the forefront of finding that next spot regardless. But it is funny you talk about kind of your presence. I can't remember if it was somebody we've had on the podcast in the past or it was just a conversation at maybe one of the tournaments, or I can't even remember. Gus, you might, but I think I remember them telling us that they were fishing a lake in Hayward and they were like, yeah, and we were fishing this spot and Steve Genson was there, so we knew it was a good spot.
Right.
I
Right.
I think I remember, was it, it might have been Rowan, because I've heard Rowan say that he's seen you out there. I don't know if you've seen Rowan in the camo boat.
I don't
No,
know, but
I think
Camo,
so,
Littlecraft,
actually.
yeah.
Yeah.
On a particular lake, yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah,
think it
I
was
think I
around him.
know that boat. I think I've seen him catch a muskie too, actually. So,
There we go.
yeah, it's something to deal with, and unfortunately, a lot of people know who I am when I'm putting the boat in and taking it out and whatnot. But that's part of the deal. To be
Hmm.
successful, you're going to have a little bit of that, and staying ahead of the curve, like you say, is always what you're looking for. Like some of my traditional lakes, I fish much differently, maybe because of that. I'm fishing spots that are secondary spots, or fishing spots farther, or not as far, or just changing how I do things. And another thing that's kind of weird is I don't know what happens is I have certain spots that used to be like automatic, right? And now I can't even hardly buy a fish there. Can't even see one sometimes. It's extremely odd and frustrating to me how spots can go on and off. And
Hmm.
sometimes you think it's because of your own pressure, but a lot of times I don't know that it is. It's just one of those
It's
phenomenons that keep you scratching your head as well.
it's like a timing thing. It's really weird. I guess one thing I can say that kind of goes along with that is I'm in Monday Night Muskie League with a whole bunch of people. There's like 70 anglers or something like that. So, divide that by two for boats, and
Yeah.
you can fish in certain lake groups, and then you can always fish the Eagle River chain. And as you know, the Eagle River chain is known for numbers. You've obviously come here and fished it before in the PMTT and whatnot, but
Well, I like the
in
Eagle River
league,
chain. I like that place.
yeah, it's a great system, and even on just a Monday night, it starts to get, pounded, and I'm, great buddies with a ton of those guys, and you get to know some of them that are kind of just in the league to fish, and they almost, it's not that they have like a program, but you almost, you know their program. You kind of
Yeah,
know
right.
what
Exactly
spots
where
they're
they're
gonna
gonna be
fish,
and
and
when they're
then
gonna
they're
be
like,
there.
okay,
Yeah.
they just, lit up two and lost one and saw a bunch, and you know what they did, and maybe you fished those spots the day before, maybe you fished them the next day and you don't see a single fish. And I have totally done that before. It's just like, how are you
Yeah.
pulling fish off these spots? Like,
Yeah.
great spot, really well known spot, but like you're just showing up at 5 p.m. and smacking a fish on a bucktail, and I go there and I can't buy a follow. On
Right.
occasions, it's like, what?
Mm.
It might just boil down to a timing thing, and yeah,
Muskies, that is
yeah.
muskies being muskies, and they will never be any different. Tournaments will certainly drive you nuts in that way too. You'll fish a spot for an hour, and a dude rolls in behind you and pounds one, or the 10th boat down the weed line nails one, or so all the things that you think about pressure sometimes just get thrown away when you watch what really happens sometimes. So,
Mhm.
yeah, it's all things that, like you say, there's no right or wrong answer, and we'll never be able to answer them exactly because we're not down there talking with the muskies, but we're always just trying to figure out by what we observe from above and um, make the best decisions that you can on the information that you're given.
So you brought up the tournament stuff. Let's start with your first tournament you ever did. Where was it? What was it? How did it go?
That's that's
Who'd you fish
hilarious.
with?
Eagle River, Eagle River Chain, PMTT,
Mm,
2002, with my
wow.
brother. Yeah,
Nice.
2002.
How was the fishing
We
that back then?
It was good. We probably should have won that damn thing. We got a 35 and a 40. We got fourth place, first tournament that we ever fished actually, and we lost two or three more um, that we had hooked up. So first time we'd ever been there, first time we'd ever seen it, first time we'd ever fished it. So we thought we were the hot shit, right? Um, it was a cool year. We ended up doing pretty well. We made the championship that year, which was in Lake Shelbyville, down in Illinois.
Oh yeah.
And of course, never seen that place before in 2002 at that fledgling stage of our careers. And so we made the trip down there and ended up doing really, really well down there. We busted three fish on first day of the tournament. We were leading. Again, should have won. We had three nice ones. I don't think anybody else had three. There's maybe a couple doubles. Going into day 4, and we just happened onto a really awesome casting bite in a small area, and the fish were just ferocious. So we really felt good about getting another bite on, that Sunday, the short Sunday, and we did. We had a really nice fish come up. Actually, blew up and missed my brother, and then it T-boned him beautifully right at the boat and just didn't stay pinned. And she ended up shaking off. So we didn't get our 4th fish, and 2 other teams ended up tripling up. I think we lost out by maybe an inch or 2, ended up 3rd.
Oh.
Yeah, in the first championship that we ever fished, and that was the first year that we ever fished
Wild.
PMTT. So yeah, it was pretty
what was that
wild.
first year like? I mean, what was like preparation
How many?
wise? What were you guys doing?
Oh, so being young and excited, it was friggin' thrilling, right? You're fishing with the big dogs, the Tony Grants and the Greg Thomases, and even Greg was a young kid then, but he was well known, and it was just it was cool because I was fishing up against the people that I idolized and knew about, and certainly want to emulate, right? You know, um, guys like Pete Mainen and stuff that you look up to. Pete never fished PMTT or tournaments really, but just all those guys that you're looking at and wanting to be like. And that very first year, we were able to put some fish in the boat, and that doesn't always work out. As you guys know, tournament fishing is very difficult. It's taking a hard job and making it even harder. But we had a really good time, and we were very intense. We would go and pre-fish 3-4 days, lots of map study. Back then, everything was new, right? We had not been to any of those places, so that was really stimulating, going to somewhere new, trying to figure it out in a handful of days, and then trying to beat everybody else who's out there at the same time, right? And luckily able to do it a little bit. As you progress down the tournament trail and the places keep going back to the same places, the excitement of being at somewhere new kind of goes away a little bit. You're fishing the same stuff over and over, but obviously you always have to figure out the pattern of the day or the tournament, so to speak. So there's always that learning, but those initial years, it was fun. It was intense. I remember just chills going down the spine when the old national anthem would go off, and here we go. Fishing for 20 grand, 20 grand is a lot of friggin' money. Let's go. And so it was fun. I do miss that a little bit.
I would say last year with the first year Gus and I did the trail together, I'll probably always look back on as like the most fun I've ever had musky fishing.
Yep.
I think cumulatively was, same deal. That every stop we went to was a new body of water for us,
Yep.
and it was just, it was just a blast. It was so
And you
good.
guys caught fish, right? I think you did pretty well, didn't you?
Yeah. Caught fish in all events, placed top 10 in all events, and got top gun.
No, that's a
And
pretty
came
good
with
maiden voyage,
two,
boys.
two at the chip. So yeah.
No, that's awesome too. Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not an easy deal. Congrats on all that success. It'll be hard to replicate, as you probably
Right.
know.
It's different
I hope you
emotions.
can.
Yeah.
I hope you
Almost
can.
did it. Almost did it this year.
Almost did
outside
it
of
this year.
me botching a nice 4-footer at the net in Madison. I don't know if
Oh yeah.
you ever need some good therapeutic video, or if you
On
ever
the-
screw up one day and you need to feel better about yourself. That's a good
Been
one to
there,
watch.
been there, done that too. That's a little rough. That's a little
Yep.
rough.
Yeah,
All,
that was
all part of the game.
a fun one with about
I
45 seconds left.
So I
Yeah,
dumped
right at the end.
I dumped a 50-incher on Keys in the championship on Lake Bemidji that would have put us in the top 5. We didn't have a fish. And yeah, she just got me on the outside of an 8 and just kind of nipped me. And I had her. I should have had her. And she ended up just shaking her way off before we could get a net on her. So I know the pains, brother. I know the pains.
Mhm.
We'll have to send you
Insane.
this footage. It's pretty good. It's heartbreaking. All right,
I'm
so
surprised I didn't swear as much.
yeah.
Yeah.
So not to focus on the negatives though. What looking back then, we talk about this first year for you guys and how fun that was. But what do you have like one tournament that stuck out as far as like maybe everything came together? Most fun tournament you've had where the pieces just kind of fell into place,
Um,
looking back?
yeah, I've had a couple. I've had a couple. We can go through those real quick. My
For
very
sure.
first win, which was PMTT 2011 at Kentucky Cave Run, which is a cool lake. You guys, I think you've been there, right? So pretty awesome
Mhm.
reservoir, a lot of fish and some big ones too. Um, Fished it many years. We went down there, I want to say, starting in 2002, and fished it with my brother for many years. And then when I started fishing with Mike, we fished it for many years. In 2011, Mike's daughter was getting married and he had a conflict, so we couldn't make the tournament. So I had to go fish by myself. And we were a team, right? So we were a trail team. So I couldn't replace him with a different partner. So I had to fish by myself. Which, intimidating enough, but I had been to cave many, many times and kind of had a game plan before I even left my house and got down there and did what I thought I was going to do, did a bunch of trolling. In the PMTT, when you're a single person, you can run the two lines, right? Because you have two lines as a
Hmm.
partner. That is a rule that's in effect. So I figured, well, I just run my two lines and troll and just troll shad. And I'm pretty good at trolling around shad down there. We've done it a lot. In fact, had placed in a couple of tournaments at Shelbyville doing that exact same thing. So was pretty confident in that. And did a bunch of pre-fishing and actually caught a couple, two or three, I want to say. I did have Dave Lutz along filming for Keys Outdoors. So I at least had a cameraman along and a net guy when we were pre-fishing, and he helped me pre-fish, obviously. And then during the tournament, you're on your own, right? So I spent most of the first day um, trolling in Scotts Creek. No secret there. A big marina there.
Mhm.
Lots of guys casting around, and there was some bait out deep, and I had caught two fish, and they were pre-fishing, trolling, so felt pretty good about it. I think I lost the third one in there, and just said made up my mind I was going to spend that first day doing that, and uh, I did that. Trolled for 7 hours, 7 or 8 hours. I think the first day is a 9 hour deal or whatever it is. And trolled till about the last hour, and there had been a couple fish caught casting in the back. As usual, there's usually a couple, and nothing major, but a few fish. And um, and during that time period, those fish kind of lay up on some really shallow flats sometimes. And there's this one real shallow flat that I trolled past 100 times through the course of the day, and I had not seen a single boat hit it. So I was in my brain. I was like, well, if I'm gonna stop for an hour and cast, I was kind of getting bored and wanted to change it up. So I pulled up to that spot. I hadn't seen anybody fishing all day, and I pulled in there for the last hour and I caught a fish in like 10 casts. Wasn't big, low 30s. So put it in the net, got a fish. All right, cool. Totally just changed my perspective on what I want to do for the rest of the tournament. Tomorrow I'm coming in here and I'm going to fish all the shallow stuff. It was a flooding year where the reservoir was like 10 feet high. We were way up in the trees, man. 4x4, and so to speak, way back in the brush, and finding these shallow flats that are way back in there. And so the next day, I just started where I caught that first fish Saturday and worked from there, and just basically could work that whole run all the way through there and worked all the way back. And I'm actually coming around a nice little point, and here comes Crash Mullins and his boy. Crash was used to run Crash's Landing down there in Cave, and
Mhm.
obviously a well-known guide. We lost Crash a few years back, but here comes him and Justin down the same break going the other way, and I kind of pull out and let them go in, and sure as shit, right as they get even with me, they pop a 38 incher. So we're there and we film them, and they let that one go, and like, all right, congrats, Crash, but not really, Crash. You know what I'm saying? And we keep going our way, and they go their way, and I go around the point, and I pop another low 30s just after I get past them. So I was like, all right, that's cool. I got two on the board now. I'm probably gonna at least get top 10. And I keep going down that break. I'm getting to the back, and there's another just beautiful flat that comes out, and I'm throwing little rattle baits. That 3/4 ounce rattle bait, Joe Buca rattler, I think it was. Great big one, just eats me up. Right as the thing hits the water, I crank it about 2 times, and I didn't know how big. It was big, and it comes by the boat, and now you can't see that rattle bait at all, and it looks like a 50 incher, and I'm like, oh man. So she goes by, she's fighting really nice, and I'm on my own. I got no partner. I got a netter on my own, and all stars aligned. I got her turned around, and she literally just swam right into the bag for me, just as calm as could be, and it ended up be a beautiful 49 incher. And with that
Jeez.
fish, steeled
Wow.
up the win. Yeah, exactly. Biggest fish I've ever caught in
Jeez.
cave from that day and to this day. Still the biggest fish I've ever caught there, but a great day to do it. And in the midst of about a dozen different boats back there, all working the same stuff. So it was just meant to be, I guess, so to speak. So that was really cool. My very first victory, and did it all by myself. I think we had over 90 boats or close to 100 boats. Was able to pull off that victory. So that was awesome. Um, 2012, fishing with my good buddy Ryan Carlisle, and we were over in Mille Lacs, the PMTT over in Mille Lacs. And Mille Lacs was that 2012 was kind of past her heyday. We knew it would be a challenging tournament, but still a lake that we wanted to go and fish, and we did. And spent 3 days pre-fishing with I think there was 91 teams in that one too, so pretty good field. And we had bluebird flat conditions for the whole week. We actually had 2 boats pre-fishing. We really were trying, and 0 muskies encountered. Not a follow, not a strike, not a anything on all the stuff we knew, which was hundreds of waypoints. We fished the whole lake, which is 132,000 acres. And by the whole lake, I mean I got spots all the way around that sucker. And we checked them all, to no avail. Saturday rolls around, same weather, just bluebird flat. Over 90 teams. We encountered 0, nothing. Doing our same old stuff. I think we fished the north end primarily in the weeds up there. One 36-inch muskie caught out of the entire field. So we knew that even though we were
Unreal.
sucking it up really bad, so was everybody else. And it's a lake that's loaded with 50-inch fish, and there's muskies. So we just needed something to change. So Sunday, we got that little bit of change. We had a little bit of wind pickup. We had a little bit of overcast. Even had a few raindrops fall. So it's just a little bit of weather change, and it wasn't a lot, but it was enough. It was still very difficult fishing, but a couple big ones were caught. There was a 55-incher caught right by our takeoff, and another one 53 inches caught down in a bay that we like to fish. So we had heard about these through the grapevine. So we knew there was a couple big ones on the board. We had nothing. Still had yet to see a muskie in 4 or 5 days of trying. So right, you're getting beat down.
Getting loopy.
It's getting hard, right? But I also know that every other boat there is probably going through the exact same thing, and that just got to stay persistent, right? So that day we decided to switch up from the weeds to begin with, and we go hit all the rocks. Which in August, it was an August tournament. When you get a little wind, a little rain, sometimes those rocks can light up. So we spent about 4 hours of our 6-hour day or 7-hour day, whatever it is. Most of the morning, most of the day, pounding all the rocks on the south end. We had a little bit of a north wind, and to no avail. Still nothing. We're down to about an hour and a half left in the tournament. Had yet to see a muskie, so we pull into Vineland Bay, which is where that 53-incher had been caught, and just got on waypoints that we have caught many, many fish on over the years. It's just a favorite little weed line, and I knew there would be muskies in the bay, just a matter of if we could get one to bite. And on Mille Lacs, there's kind of 2 little patterns that work. Really little bucktails, heavily weighted, that going really, really fast, or really big stuff going really, really slow. So we were kind of doing those 2 patterns. I was the big guy in the back going really slow, and I had Ryan on a little extra heavy weighted showgirl, Genson showgirl, which we built for Team Rhino. That's where it became from, actually, is that win. And that extra heavy weighted showgirl, and just had him burning it on a Tranks 500, full spool, blazing speed to the point where it's blistering in, where you could barely see the thing moving. And said, just keep it going. Go faster, 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 dude. We got 1 hour left, and everybody's quitting, right? Because nobody's caught nothing. There's plenty of guys that probably had given up at that point. And We're about 20 minutes down that weed line, and out of friggin' nowhere, 48 3/4 comes up and absolutely destroys them both side on that little showgirl. Mouth as wide as she could get it. He was going full freaking speed, so it was an absolute explosion both side. Keeps her pinned, amen. Bag her up, 48 3/4. So we're on the board. We figure we're probably in third place with that fish right there. We still got like half an hour of fishing, and then we got like a half an hour run back to the landing. So we got about 30 minutes to go yet. And I'm like, all right, dude, pour it on. Now I throw one on. We're double burning showgirls. About 10, 15 minutes later, whoosh, huge boil about 10 feet out. Fish comes up and shoots behind and misses. I'm like, oh no. So just fly into the 8. Don't hesitate. Don't stop. He didn't. Praise Ryan. He just kept it flying. Flew into that 8, and on the very first turn, the fish came directly from underneath it and absolutely T-boned it. And that was like a 42 3/4 or something like that. It didn't really matter. It was over 40, and it was all we needed to capture that win. And we caught that one with like 10 minutes of fishing time left.
Holy shit.
Yeah, we threw that one back and said, all right,
Unreal.
let's get back to the landing. And we did end up getting that win. So that was cool.
Was the
And then- Go
real
ahead.
quick, was the small bucktail like at Mach 10? Was that kind of like an undiscovered tactic at the time, or were other people trying?
So no, I can't take credit for that. Jason Hammernick. So you guys, I don't know if you guys even know of Jason. So back in the day, Jason was the primary guide on Lake Mille Lacs, and he taught us that many years before that.
Okay.
In the course of filming, and Jason was there in that tournament fishing, doing the exact same thing. So it wasn't a pattern that I necessarily discovered on my own. I would say that I did pick that up from Jason, but we certainly were ready to do that. We had built those baits specifically for that tactic, specifically for that tournament, and it paid off. It paid off. So
Yeah.
so that was cool. And
Sweet.
then a couple years after that, back over in Eagle River, I was fishing in the World of Musky Tour, WMT. And we
Yeah.
ended up qualifying for the championship in that with another good buddy of mine named Matt Holland, who lives over in the Twin Cities. And Matt's kind of encouraged me to get into this. He's like, there's a $50,000 championship, dude. We got to get qualified. We should try and win that thing. And I didn't have anything going. I was kind of done with PMTT. And he talked me into doing a tournament here on Lake Namakogan. And we ended up going up there, and we qualified. We got second. I think Matt's got a giant 47. And got us qualified for this championship, which was in Eagle River, and it was the top 100 boats out of all the tournaments, which I don't know at that time was maybe 8 of them or something. There was a pretty good number of
Wow.
tournaments. So you had to fish at least 2, and you had to be in the top 100 boats. Well, there was a top 100. There was the full field, 100 boats showed up for the championship, and it was the $50,000 payout. So we were pretty jacked. But we were also very intimidated when you rolled into the takeoff. I think was in Yellow
Eagle
Birch, maybe
Waters? Oh, Yellow Birch.
Eagle Water. Yeah. I think it was Eagle Waters. So we roll in there, and there's 100 boats in that lake. I mean, that basically filled that lake up. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
So we're like, holy shit, we got to beat all these guys. So we got there early, did a little pre-fishing. I had fished the Eagle River chain many times, so I kind of had a preconceived notion of where I was going to go, what I was going to do. We did that on Thursday. Saw some fish, maybe 4 or 5, pulled away from a couple, maybe had a bump or 2. Nothing too exciting, but enough, to know that I at least had what I had, a plan. So Friday we get up, we're like, well, we don't want to go fish anywhere where we think we're going to fish in the tournament, right? So we're going to just go to the whole other end of the chain, and we'll just play around with bait, see if we can figure out something that'll work. Maybe catch a fish that somebody's going to catch tomorrow, right? So we go down there and we start fishing, and the muskies on that end of the chain were absolutely going bazonkers. I ended up catching 3. Pretty much all by accident. We were trying to pull the lures away from them, and they were coming so hard and so fast that we couldn't get away from them. I caught 3. We moved 3 or 4 more. Matt's did pull away from a couple good ones. So we totally did a 180. We're like, all right, obviously we're going a whole nother direction tomorrow. We're going to start on one of the fish that Matt's pulled away from. And in that format, they only let you catch one per angler per day. So you had a total of 2 fish. You can measure any fish you wanted, but you could only measure 2. Well, yeah, so it kind of goes into your thought process. If I catch a 34, do I let it go? Or, what do I do? We're on the Eagle River chain,
Wow.
right? So you
That's
have
crazy.
all that going on. So we pull up to the first spot, and on the second cast, Matt's nails the one that we pulled away from the day before. And he catches it 41 and a half or 41 and 3/4. So we were like, oh, all right, this is going to go good. We get that fish, move around to the break where I had caught 2 the day before, and we worked it pretty hard. Didn't have much going. It took us several hours. I want to say we caught our first fish right away, or first hour, and the second fish came at maybe 2 o'clock or something like that. But I ended up getting a nice 43.5 incher in the figure 8, out of nowhere, blind attack, bagged
Wait,
her
so
up.
if Matt would have caught the 43, how does that?
So you could still fish together, but you can only register the 2 fish. Right. So they're letting
Okay.
you register your legal amount of muskies for the day. It was kind of a weird rule. You both could fish, but you can only, register 1 per angler. So a
What
total of 2 on your boat.
was
So
that
if he
the
would have caught the 43, what would you have done?
Nothing, kept fishing, right? So it still would have won. It didn't matter
Gotcha.
who caught him.
Oh,
We just,
okay.
yeah, it didn't matter who caught him.
just
You
2
could
per
just have 2 for the
day?
boat, 2 for the boat.
2 for
You
the
know what I
boat? Because
mean?
Gotcha.
Yeah, so one guy could catch both, no problem. But you can only have the 2, not like in the
what
PMTT where you can keep adding them up, right?
Right.
was that a tournament where you had to take the fish to be measured at like a certain place?
No, so we didn't fish them. I wouldn't fish them back in the day when he did
Oh,
that. This was
okay.
the first year where he allowed judge boat verification. So a
Ah,
lot of guys did not fish his trail for that very reason that you said. They used to bring him back to the dock, measure him at the dock, and let him go there.
and they'd let him
So
go
we,
there.
yeah, we didn't ever fish that tournament under
That's
those conditions. So
crazy.
once he
Bass
went
fishing.
to, yeah, once he went to the judge boat thing, and we weren't
Beat
worried
up
about
on
killing
stage,
fish,
holding 2
right?
muskies.
Yeah, totally,
It's hilarious.
What's he
totally.
got in the bag?
So yeah, it was just like the PMTT. So we ended up, just calling the judge boat in, and then they registered
Mm.
the fish. So we got the 2 fish, 41 and a 43 and some change. There was 4 teams that doubled on day 1 out of the 100 teams. Well, we were the top double, obviously, but not by much. It was inches. And so we go into Sunday. We're pretty damn confident. We had so much action, and just we're on a really awesome pattern. And Sunday, as all patterns do, it absolutely disappeared. We saw 0 muskies, had no action, had no bites, no nothing. So I was pretty damn furious when I put my boat on the trailer that day, thinking that we had let the opportunity of a lifetime slip away. Just couldn't find a fish, doing everything that we had done, and just ran out of time. And we get
That'll
back
happen out
to,
there.
yeah, we went back
Yep.
to the award ceremony. I was so mad. I remember being so mad. And we actually got a call from the guy as we were loading up. He said, "Make sure you guys make her back." So that alone kind of gave us a little bit of a hint, but we ended up coming back, and it turns out only one team, none of the teams that had doubled on Saturday caught a fish on Sunday, and one team that hadn't caught a fish on Saturday caught 2 on Sunday. So there ended up to be a total, I think, of 5 doubles, and we were able to hang on by the skin of our teeth and
Wow.
pull out the
Wow.
$50,000 win.
What?
Jeez.
Yeah. So I just threw the
That's
mic down and
crazy.
walked out and called it good. Be hard to replicate that.
Yeah. If you show up to the award ceremony, you're just shaking 'cause you got no idea. There's no
Yeah,
way.
it was total 180 on emotions there. And,
Yeah.
yeah, it was meant to be, I guess. Like you say, sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But those are my highlights in tournament fishing.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I think you always think like it's so funny, you talk about that, like, oh,
And
we didn't
wait,
catch it. Oh, go
between
ahead.
all those highlights, there was lots of tournaments where we caught absolutely nothing and did horrible. We had a lot of them that we placed in, but we had a lot of tournaments. Don't get me wrong, where we were definitely not the top dog, and you better learn how to handle that if you're going to fish a lot of tournaments too. Is to be able to handle the emotion of not being the best boat out there some days, and it absolutely happens. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, it kind of leads into what I was just about to say. It was like, you probably pulled the boat, like you said, on the trailer that day and said there's 0% chance we hung on to this lead.
Right.
Because you're always assuming that other people are just smashing
Catching.
fish, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
every
And with so
time,
many guys, so many
yeah,
doubles rate by us, I was like, there's too many teams that only need one fish to beat us,
right.
And
Yeah.
when we couldn't come up with our fish, I was definitely at a low point, and
And like,
thank the musky gods from above that it was supposed to be our day that day.
especially on a system like the Eagle River chain. I mean, really anywhere we've fished in tournaments, like, you'll roll through the spot and like you fished it for a reason, right? Like you're fishing it because you believe that either there's fish there or you believe there's fish there. And it's like when you see somebody else kind of snake in and start fishing that spot, like your stomach starts to turn because you're like,
Mm-hmm.
well, you didn't get it there. Like, is there,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and now that we've done the trail for 2 years plus one individual one and fished some other tournaments, like we've seen some backdoor stuff happen, like you've mentioned earlier and whatnot. But yeah, you always assume like that next boat, like if I didn't get it, like, oh, shoot, they're gonna
Yep.
definitely catch
Yeah.
it. And it's always
Yeah, there's
it's
some
always a
mind games there.
nerve-wracking feeling, like
It is. Yep.
we
And learning to just fish confident, I think is important too.
yeah, I mean, I think we've told the story on the podcast back at the chip last year after we recapped our time there. But like we had this one spot, Gus and I, just pegged. Like we knew that there was a handful of fish on this like very small isolated weed flat. Gus caught one there pre-fishing. We literally watched a muskie eat a ball of bait, blow up a ball of bait
Mm-hmm.
on this weed bed. Earlier that day, we had to follow all this stuff. We fished it like 17 times that day. We
Mm-hmm.
slide off the spot for just to give it a break.
Mm-hmm.
Boat comes in behind us. All of a sudden, we start hearing cheering and whatnot. We're like, no way. No way did that just happen.
That was
I
day
mean,
one
we're
of the
like,
championship.
yeah, and like all we needed was just one fish for that top gun. So at the time, our mental
Yeah.
was not good to say the least after watching that happen.
Yeah. Tough one to
But
swallow.
yeah, it's just kind of what makes it fun though with the tournament stuff. I mean, it's when you add the competitive element to musky fishing. Like
Yeah.
I know some guys talk about like, well, tournaments aren't really my thing, and that's all good and dandy. I don't blame anybody for not wanting to fish tournaments, but I personally think that they're a boatload of fun. Like
Yeah.
if you look at them that way, like it's just a great way to test your own ability against some of the best anglers, and if you have fun doing it, like I don't know, you lean into it, it's just a good time, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And like you
So,
say, you learn a lot. No matter if you do well or not, you're still learning. Especially as you travel around the country and go to these different places. Fishing different bodies of water. Those reservoirs fish so much differently than our lakes, and places with shad fish so much differently than places with the panfish, and it just adds to your repertoire and makes you a hell of a lot better angler. Whether you're doing well or not, you're learning how to do things and seeing how to do things, and those things translate for sure.
yeah, I think it's also helped expectation wise too, because like you said you make something, you take a hard sport and make it harder by fishing tournaments, and like
Oh,
I was
without a
saying, you,
doubt.
you
Yeah.
kind of assume that everybody's smashing fish, but at the end of the day, you get in there and there's only a handful of guys, typically
Right.
every day that are happy, right?
Yep.
So like you have all these great sticks that are out on the water, and it's not like 90% of the field's coming back and being like, man, we just
Yeah.
crushed fish today.
Totally
Like,
different than a bass fishing format, right?
right.
Where everybody's got their five. Pretty
Mhm.
rare that everybody gets a muskie in a tournament. In fact, like you say, generally you got about 10 to 20% of the boats catching all the fish. And again, shows you how hard it is to catch a muskie, right? When you have all these good guys doing it, but when you have all those good guys doing it at the same time, and shows it it's even harder. There's
Yeah.
additional
It's,
challenge there.
I think it's great for people that definitely are getting into the sport that want to like commit themselves to it, because I think you look on like a social media or whatever and you see all these people just catching a bunch of hero shots, bunch of fish, guys like, oh my God, those guys just go out and smash fish. But at the end of the day, like, now that we've started traveling and doing these tournaments, you realize like, yeah, this is just a really hard sport. Like you're just not
Oh
going to
yeah.
have success every time you're out there. So I think it's helped at least myself like really realign what expectations should
Yep.
be on any given day when you go out there. Like you could easily go out there and get your ass kicked.
A
Um,
lot of the days, buddy. A lot of the
Yeah,
days. You know,
right,
no
yeah.
matter no matter how long you've been doing it, it's just part of the beast. And if you don't enjoy that aspect of it, you don't enjoy musky fishing. Like I said before, it's not for the faint at heart, or you have to be pretty resilient. Um, Sometimes you question your sanity of why you've embraced the fish that is so difficult to catch. And like I say, I fished all over the world. I've fished salt, I've fished the ocean, I've caught lots and lots of species, and the muskie is still the most captivating of them all. And at times, the still the hardest one to catch, and at times the easiest one to catch. So
Right.
it's an intriguing fish nonetheless.
Yeah, it is so funny. I mean, we had the championship at Eagle River just this past year, and obviously Gus and I, we've been fishing, Brian too. I mean, we've all been fishing that body of water for like I said, a very long time. And like that weekend, it felt impossible, right, to catch a
Yeah,
muskie. And
yeah,
there's
Mhm.
days where we've gone out, like I've gone out solo in the morning, just throwing a bucktail, no mapping, no GPS, nothing. I mean, we have a boat that we keep on the water there that doesn't even have a running Garmin. It has no mapping
gotcha.
or anything.
It
And
doesn't
Love
matter.
it.
I'll go out there by
Love
myself
that.
throwing a double A bucktail, and I'll have a three fish morning. Be sending Gus pictures like this, holding up fish,
Yeah,
whatever. And then we get in a tournament there, and it's like,
yeah,
where's
it's like
that
foreign water.
up 34 incher that we need right now? That I'm out there like literally running zero sonar, like I said, throwing a freaking single seven or a
yeah.
double eight over a weed flat, and
So you said a lot there too. Musky fishing has become such a technical sport, right? Everybody's got this and that, and there's so much thought process into thinking the game out, and a lot of it is just go fishing. You know what I mean? And go
Mhm.
fishing a lot.
Big time.
Putting time on the water is definitely the best way to catch muskies, without hands down. Without any doubt there. But um, there's times where I feel like that we overthink it. We make it harder than it has to be. Um, Sometimes the simplified thought process and the simplified approach is the right one. Sometimes, and it's real easy in electronics day and age, and uh, the social media day and age, to just overthink things and try to make them harder than they really are. And I'm guilty of it
Mhm.
too. I'm guilty of it too. And then sometimes just going back to your roots is the best way to catch them.
Are
I
you
I couldn't agree more.
oh, do you got something on that, Max, or
I was just gonna say, I mean, I don't know if I'll get kind of blamed for this, but it's like, though, yeah, I'm very happy that we grew up learning how to musky fish without crazy amount of electronics, because I feel like, now that we have introduced electronics to our game in some capacity. I mean, we're not, what people are thinking of when I say that,
Right.
but it's
Oh
like,
yeah. Oh yeah.
at the same
yeah.
time, like when you introduce all these electronics and you talk about like making it more complicated than it probably should be, I think what happens on days that the fish are responding negatively towards baits, the frustration level amplifies so much more,
Sure.
because like you can either
Right.
visually see them,
Yeah, yeah.
you see them on your side scan, you see them on your live or whatever, they're not doing what you want them to do, and like you just get pissed kind of because you're like, well, what's going on? Where I'm
Mhm.
really glad that when we learned and kind of like fell in love with musky fishing, we really just had the typical 2D
2D.
or whatever, where it was never about like fishing a fish or whatever. It was just kind of, hey, let's go check out this spot, let's go check out that spot. And a lot of times I think Gus and I in tournaments, talking to that, we fall back on that a lot, where it's just like,
Yeah.
hey, if it's a good spot, we like it, we think it's good, like we're just gonna keep fishing it, and if it works out, it works out, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. And that's one of the reasons why we really enjoy fishing the PMTT, is because it doesn't have live scope, and it feels more enjoyable for us, because it's like, okay, we're just out here, and you got to go back to the roots a little bit. You're
Yeah,
not
for
you're
sure.
not out just trying to crush a fish that you can see on your electronics. So yeah, I don't know what I guess the point was, but yeah, getting back to the roots and stuff is like, it's more enjoyable, and I think probably started to trend more in that direction this year after buying a live scope unit a couple years ago and it being a shiny, cool new toy, that we
Yep.
just were like, oh my God, this is so awesome. You
Right.
can see bait, you can see all this stuff. Where now it's a little bit more in the camp of like,
The minor tool for certain
yeah,
Yep.
applications.
Yep.
yeah.
Agreed. So you come full circle on it. I like that, Um,
And I've heard other people feel the same way, which I
yep.
don't know if that's the majority or whatever. It's probably just my small bubble of people I talk with, but
Yep.
like I'm hoping a little bit that that happens to some other people as well, where it's like
Yeah.
it
No,
doesn't.
I do think that trend is the fad's gonna kind of come full circle, but only time will tell.
Right.
Time will tell. I mean, you've been doing this a lot longer than we have, and I'm sure you've seen the progression a lot,
Yeah,
more
but the
clearly than we
progressions
have.
are so much faster now, and the changes are so much faster, exponentially faster in this day and age than they used to be. So, um, that's the only thing that's different now. Is the
Hmm.
information age is it's fast. People don't need us guides as much as they did, 10 years ago or 20 years ago, just because the amount of information, the amount of podcasts like we're doing today, the amount of YouTube that's out there. There's so
Hmm.
much information. You can learn how to fish without anybody if you really want to. You still got to go get all the gear and spend all the money to do it and go find the fish. But the techniques and all that stuff is, there's so much information available. It's a lot easier for people this day and age.
And that, I mean, that's part of what, obviously the main focus of when we started this podcast was to help Gus and his guide business. Like you said, you talk about building a guide business and you're kind of jealous of this day and age being able to kind of mass
Right. Oh
information,
yeah. Yeah.
yourself. But I would say, majority of this podcast has turned into a lot just more kind of storytelling and rather than because we don't want to be replicating other people. And I think there's plenty of
Yep.
great outlets to find tips and tricks and stuff. And we'll
Yep.
definitely have that on ours, and Gus will share that information. I mean, you don't want to be taking advice from Brian and myself, but like um,
I don't
Sometimes.
know, man.
I think that's what we try to kind of skew more towards like the good fun stories and stuff like
Yeah.
that because at the end of the day that's kind of what makes musky fishing really fun is like talking about the stories of it, the aura of it, it's
Yeah.
like that's kind of what I don't know makes it enjoyable to a degree in my
Yeah,
opinion.
I agree with that, and I like your concept and your aspect that way because there is so much of listen to me tell you how to do it out there. And there's so many guys that listen to me tell you how to do it, and for
Hmm.
they're giving you good information, but there's just a lot of it. So it gets a little bit overwhelming. Um, and like you mentioned, I love the old stories too. One of my favorite books is the Compendium Musky Angling History by Larry Ramsell, the
Reading it
first
right now.
edition. It's amazing. I've read it numerous times, and I read those
Just
stories over and over and over again. And
yeah.
it's that lore and that mystique, and um, just the coolness of the fish and how people have revered it for so long and have held it in such a regard for so long, and how we've pursued it in a maniacal way. You guys included, we spend way too much time chasing this fish that we're gonna literally catch and put back in the water as quickly as we can without harming it, and we love it so much, right?
Hmm.
Um, a lot of that is it's just weird for people to even think about. You fish so hard for this fish, and then you take it and you don't even eat it, right? You put it back. Um, but we've been chasing muskies for a long time, and a lot of those cool old stories were definitely got me intrigued in the fish and got me to want to go after it and make some of those stories on my own.
Like you said earlier, I mean, you've been fishing for these for over 2 decades. You've seen lakes on the upswing, you've seen lakes on the downfall. I guess what's most worrisome for you looking into the future, I guess if anything, or what might keep you up at night, whether it be stocking or technology or pressure. I mean, what kind of worries you about the trajectory of the sport?
Yeah, that's a good question. I do have some worries. I do feel like stocking is an issue. We have a lot of our fisheries here are stocked fisheries, and we have some natural reproduction in almost all of our lakes, but certainly not enough to maintain the population of muskies that we are used to or have become accustomed to having at our fingertips to go fishing for, right? So, I've gotten accustomed to a certain level of success that I'd like to maintain, a certain number of fish that I like to get in the boat, and certain size classes that we want to maintain. And I would say in the last couple of years, I've seen catch rate go down a little bit. I feel like I'm not seeing quite as many fish, and I feel like in some of my lakes where I'm seeing just a few less fish, and I don't know how well that's going to turn around. We're kind of hand tied here in that our DNR doesn't allow us to stock outside fish outside of our Chippewa strain fish here. And there is no muskie farms that raise Chippewa strain muskies. So the only fish that get stocked in our northwest corner of the state here are fish that are raised by our DNR, which our DNR, albeit are good people, they aren't the most efficient at fish farming. They have had budget restrictions. They actually have another budget restriction, which is calling for maybe another 30% decrease in walleye and muskie stocking.
Jeez.
Yeah, so that's another thing that may be coming our way. So that's the problem with government, right? And so we're a little bit hand tied in that aspect here. Down in the southern portion of the state, those guys can buy fingerlings from muskie farms. Those muskie clubs are allowed to stock outside fish. We just are not here due to the genetic makeup of our population here. Good, bad, or indifferent, it's what we have. And I actually work with the DNR pretty closely. One of the few guys here in the county that's licensed to pit tag. Carry a pit tag reader everywhere I go. And I also pit tag any fish that I catch that aren't already tagged. And I just got a letter back or an email back from my biologist who just did a compilation of all the fish that I have recaptured and tagged myself. And they were pretty amazed at the amount of information that I've been able to provide them, and which is pretty cool. Nice little pat on the back. So I feel like I have maybe more of a voice than others do in talking to my biologist and letting him know what's going on in the waters, and where I'm seeing up trends and where I'm seeing down trends. And the only bummer is with muskies, it just takes a long time, right? To rebuild fisheries that fall apart, to start fisheries that aren't there. It takes 10 years, 12 years, even more. And that's a long time, right? So it's a difficult thing to put your finger on. It's a difficult thing to monitor. So by helping these guys out with the pit tagging program, we're seeing how fast these fish are growing. We're seeing how long they're living. We're seeing if they're moving from lake to lake. We're getting an idea how durable they are, how many times they're being recaptured, and things like that. So they're getting a lot of good information. Unfortunately, I just don't know that they all have, the resources available to them to make all the adjustments that I'd like them to make. But that's musky fishing. We still have awesome fishing. Don't get me wrong. It's just a little bit less than what it maybe once was just a few years ago. And I've seen this many times, boys. I've seen Mille Lacs go from the world's greatest fishery to a place where you could not even buy a muskie. So those trends come and go. In general, we're lucky here in northern Wisconsin. We have lots of natural populations and we have a lot of lakes. So we do have a lot of options, but along with a lot of lakes comes a lot of responsibility, and it takes a lot of fish to stock all those lakes for the DNR. So I always want to see more and catch more. I think that's everybody's right. I want to see a lot, catch a lot each and every day, or more and bigger. But unfortunately, I don't know that we'll see that trend continuing in the current status of what's going on.
Gotcha. What's like what's holding back your area from stocking a different strain of muskie?
It's that genetic deal, and they're hard fast on it. We've lobbied, we've tried. I've tried to get them to do Great Lakes. We've tried them to even allow us just to buy fish from some of the muskie farms, and they are absolutely steadfast against it. If it is not from the Chippewa strain, which is a genetic strain,
Yeah.
very easy to sample, they won't allow it. And all the muskie farms, Minnesota Muskie Farm has the spotted strain over there. Obviously, we no go there. Gollins, which is a big farm down in Stevens Point area, which is a pretty big provider of muskie fingerlings to a lot of these clubs. He will not allow us to stock his strain of fish here. And there's nobody up here growing them. It's a challenging business to raise muskies on a private farm and make money off it as well. So there's those restrictions or limitations. And I actually lobbied one of my fish farmer, a guy who runs a huge fish farm up here who does bait primarily bait. He did some walleye stuff for when they did the walleye referendum, but I lobbied him a little bit to see if we could get him to do 1 pond of fish for us, and he's like, "No way, I just won't touch it. There's no way we can even, break even on it, much less, make money or, um, I just can't afford to give up that amount of space to not make money on it and to probably lose money, right? So,
Right.
just a challenge there. I don't know. What do they do in Vilas? Are you guys allowed to stock?
They gotta be. I've seen different strange strains happen up here. They've stocked spotted. They got the Wisconsin River. I've seen on the DNR website unnamed strains. I've seen Chippewa strains stocked up here, I
Yeah.
believe. I think they
So
just
yeah,
start tossing in
it's
whatever.
interesting, which, back in the day they used to do that over here. So that's why I feel like, preserving this whole Chippewa strain thing is probably a moot point at this point, right? Because
Yeah, I was
they've
gonna
done
say,
that in the past. So how true are any of these genetics? If we were to really go back in time and
it's
trace them, but
It's
only the
funny.
lakes that
I
have never been stocked
I don't
right.
are the
understand
ones
it
that.
because I just don't understand. I come from the business world where it's like if you have a product that's in demand, typically there's a market for it. So it's like it kind of blows my mind that they haven't been able to find the, economies of scale to figure out how somebody could profit, it's not profit, well, yes,
Right.
profit, but incentivize somebody enough to
Yep.
profit
Yep.
by raising and stocking muskies.
Yep.
I hope that it's a situation again. I don't think we're going to solve the world muskie problems here tonight on this podcast, but I do hope
Oh
it's a
no.
situation that might figure itself out. Like if you think of the greater scheme of markets in general, like rarely do you have a product that is so in demand that you can't monetarily benefit from
Right. Right.
producing that product. Like
Yep.
that doesn't necessarily align with how I think about that. So I don't know. Maybe
I'm
it'll
I'm
figure.
fearful that the trend of the natural resources keeps going down. You know what I mean? They're putting less and
Mhm.
less money towards not just the fishing, but the hunting and everything else. So there's concerns maybe all across the board along those lines. But
Mhm.
again, we won't solve all those problems today.
Well, I don't want to end on a bad note with you here,
Yeah.
or maybe a sad note. So, give us maybe, I don't know whether it's a good story from the past or maybe a highlight from your boat this season to end us on here tonight. I'm sure you guys too have really enjoyed this. I've enjoyed
Of
this a lot.
course.
This is a great conversation.
Yeah. Cool. Appreciate
Um,
that.
but
Well,
yeah, hit us with a good highlight, good note to end
so
on
yeah,
here.
well, because I don't catch muskies anymore. I'm too old, and I just guide. I live my life vicariously through my clients, and one of my favorite clients to do that through is my oldest client, who I mentioned earlier, Mr. Tim Gork. I literally have I could do a whole podcast just doing Tim Gork stories of muskies that he's caught, including many many large ones here. He is the proverbial lucky guy. No matter how slow the fishing is, no matter what's going on, Tim just is the guy who almost always has some success. And last year he had a bunch of it. Ended up with the 46 and a 48 and a couple of his trips here. And for an 83-year-old guy at that time, both casting,
That's
was
great.
pretty awesome.
Unreal.
But one of my highlight stories with Tim was, I don't know, probably 6 or 8 years ago now. And it was an October trip. Pretty difficult fishing. I don't know that we'd had a ton of luck. Maybe a fish or two in the boat. Ended up on one of my small flowages that I haven't been able to get on here in recent years due to the lower water. And a spot we like to go hit in October. It just fishes suckers really, really well. If you can get on the bite right, the sucker bite can be amazing. And so we put in there, and just not much happened. And it was one of those bluebird flat days. I look at the picture, I have it on my wall here, and just flat as flat could be and not a cloud in the sky, and just one of those days where you wouldn't expect to catch. But it's October. We're on a place that's loaded with them, and we got a live well full of suckers. Working down a break, and we have a nice sucker rip. Uh, I put Tim on the rod, and I'm like, "All right, buddy, let's crack her." And he sets the hook, and he turns the fish sideways, and she comes up to the surface and turns sideways, and I see it's a friggin' dandy, pushing that 50-inch mark. I get just a beautiful look at her, and she does about 2 head shakes, and out comes the sucker, no hookup. I'm
Oh no.
pretty distraught because it had been not an easy fall, and I at the time thinking it was probably the largest fish that we had hooked up to at that point, and so I'm pretty discouraged. I get the sucker all chewed up in, I get it in, and throw it in the live well, and I grab out a live new sucker, and I rig that thing up, and I pitch it over the side of the boat, and I just start clicking the clicker out, and the clicker just keeps clicking, and it just keeps clicking. I'm like, Tim, I think we got another customer, and I jack the rod right back into his hand, and the fish is like right under the boat, and we're a little amped up. We had just lost the big one, and I put Tim on the hook set, and uh, as he sets, the rod snaps way down by the butt.
Oh
So,
no.
exactly, which it's going to happen, right? If you fish a lot, you're going to break a rod. This is not ideal timing. So we snap the rod right at the butt, and up rolls the fish, and here it's her, giant, just rolling around. Thankfully, he pins her just enough, and he's fighting her on a little stub of a rod on about 5 feet of line, and she's thrashing around just long enough that I can slide the net under her, and we scooped her in. She ended up being 49.
Jeez.
So yeah, we got that one on the second attempt, and on the broken rod, and all things saying we should have never caught that one, but we certainly did get it. So
That's
just another
outstanding.
cool Tim
Like,
Grug story, and I got many, many more. That boy has caught a bunch of nice ones. So
that's
That's awesome.
amazing. I feel like that happens just in the fall with suckers. It can be so frustrating. And then all of a sudden there's just that one muskie you run across that you can do no
yeah,
wrong.
yeah,
He'll go through 10 suckers before you lay a hook
yeah.
into him until you like he just wants to be held for a picture. And it's always like right when you need it.
I
And
love those
that's awesome.
muskies.
They're the best muskies.
Yes, for sure.
Awesome. Well, Brian,
Appreciate it, guys.
got anything else? Yeah, we can't thank you enough for your time here
Yeah,
tonight. This was a blast. A lot of fun.
cool, cool.
Yeah.
I'll be at the muskie shows. I'm gonna do Chicago, Milwaukee. I don't know if you guys will be wandering around those, but probably see it either of those if you do make it down there. So
Yeah, I'll be at the Chicago one. I don't know about Milwaukee though. Um,
I'll
and
be at
then
Wausau and
Minnesota and
Minneapolis.
Wausau.
okay,
So
cool. Yeah, I'll be down in Florida. Hopefully, not at a muskie expo.
there you go.
Catching a
Nice.
tarpon. I will
Oh
be catching
yeah,
a tarpon
sweet.
or a tuna or
That'd be
something.
awesome.
Right
That's
on.
for
It's
sure.
still incredible that you do all that and then you still said in here that like the muskies are still
Oh yeah,
the
yeah,
best
without a doubt,
chase.
without a doubt.
Because yeah,
But the
that's
ocean's
cool to
very
hear.
addicting. Just telling you, be careful
Yeah.
if you go
Yeah,
there.
we
Be
have
real
once or
careful.
twice for sure.
All right,
We
all
know
right.
we've caught redfish and snook and not a
Barracuda.
tarpon yet.
Yeah,
I caught a
cool.
Barracuda,
tarpon. I got the tarpon over you.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
you
Yeah,
do.
Brian's got our tarpon. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that blue water too. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
cool.
Oh
Appreciate
yeah.
it, Steve.
All right, boys. Yep, appreciate it. Good luck with the podcast and good luck fishing this year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you too.
Thank you much.
Yep. Later.
Appreciate it.
All right. Well, we cannot thank Steve enough for sharing his time tonight and chatting with us, all muskies. We went through a little bit of, doom and gloom topic, but that's all right. It's a tough thing to talk about, stocking and all that stuff, but still gotta, talk about it because it's a real thing. And but then we had some awesome tournament, stories from him. Some of his wins and how they were done were amazing because in musky fishing it's not like an NFL game. You don't get post press and stuff put up on social media and videos of how it all went down. Steve just they won, they got their trophy, maybe said some words for the people that were at the tournament to hear, and then went on their way. So it's really cool to kind of hear those again and have them express those out there, and then hear about, back in the day, and how he got into musky fishing and all that stuff is great. And we could tell, and I hope you guys too, his enthusiasm for the sport is still very high, after doing it for 25 plus years, basically, and it's just great to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Not all tournament wins are created equal. I mean, hearing about that story of, front loading a tournament and winning and not catching anything on the second day, and then also catching
Mhm.
two in the last, hour, 30 minutes or whatever it was to clinch that other victory. I mean, kind of just cool stuff to hear about how you're kind of always in the game with that. But yeah, no, it was truly an honor to speak with him here tonight and have him give us his time, and really enjoyed it. Brian, do you have any major takeaways from the interview here tonight?
Yeah, I mean, obviously all those stories, like we said, but cool to hear his perspective on stocking. I had no idea that they weren't allowed to stock a different strain up in that Hayward area. That really sucks. I don't understand still exactly why they couldn't. I don't know if they're worried about like their survivorship of a different strain, or if it's, a government thing, or whatever the factors are, but definitely interested to kind of learn more about that. But super cool that he's, working with some of the biologists and DNR with pit tags. Super cool data. I know that comes along with that. Gus, we should try and get you hooked up with that. Be able to track your
Right.
muskies around. But
Yeah, I
That's
feel like
one way to
there is
keep in touch with our pets up here.
yeah.
I feel like there is so much doom and gloom talk over the stocking stuff, and it seems rightfully so. I mean, I definitely through the year plus now doing this podcast have learned so much about the kind of trajectory of stocking and stuff compared to what I thought it was, when we kind of
Right.
started to have those conversations. I think it's one of those things that, not everybody's an expert in, whether you believe it or not, reading some Facebook comments, but like I think the more educated more people can get, I do hope at least that push will come to shove in some capacity, and there will be a breaking point
Mhm.
where something will give. I still just don't fully understand how you have, a sport that's growing exponentially and the actual finite piece of it, which are the fish, is shrinking. So
Right.
clearly something's gonna have to give here soon, and hopefully the proper channels are able to figure that out. And honestly, if anyone's listening to this and has suggestions on how we could get involved, I know it's kind of a messy situation from what it sounds like talking to people, but there is a
Yeah.
way to use our platform in a way to help. I know we've talked about that just in like our group chat and stuff. We would love to hear suggestions on how to do that. I mean, I think that's something we would love to do. So if there was a proper way to do it, I mean, obviously, when you're getting money involved, people's finances and whatnot, people spending money on stuff, you want to make sure it's going to the right areas. But I would love to use the podcast to help, even if it's just a little bit
Hmm.
in any way we can. So if we can learn more about how to do that, that would be great. If anyone has any suggestions, please feel free to hit the line, send us a DM, come and slide in the
Slide
DMs.
into the DMs.
It's
Muskies
always
on
open.
tap.
Slide.
Instagram, Facebook.
It's always open. But yeah, no, it's gonna be a good year, boys. 2025 starting off good. This has been fun to hop back on, and feel like we kicked it off with a great interview.
Yeah, I mean, rolling, at the end of the season, everybody was kind of in hunting mode, and then everybody, we had Thanksgiving, and everybody was in holiday mode for Christmas, traveling, family. And then now it kind of feels like we're back. I mean, I know I've been ice fishing, but I think we're back in muskie mode. I'll be soon headed down to the Chicago Muskie Expo, and we're just gonna be counting down the days. I'm sure in the next couple
Months.
weeks we'll have Weather Watch on May 24th, the opener of North Wisconsin. We'll be looking ahead at that.
Oh man.
Totally accurate, 3 month in advance, 4 month
If
in
they
advance.
keep
That's my
making ice
favorite.
the way they are, I mean, it's gonna might be a late ice off this year. Who knows?
Hey, you
hopefully you
never
guys get
know.
some snow this year so you can at least
Wouldn't
not
mind
have a repeat
snowmobiling
of
around. Yeah.
last year where there was just, such a weird winter. But at least we're getting the ice this year, and who knows? But yeah, no, some exciting updates on our front. Gus or Brian. I mean, I know Brian's kind of in charge of merch, but he hasn't really been doing anything. So,
I don't think he
um,
has done
Merch
anything.
God, merch
I
God.
I do think we have some pretty exciting updates, and if one of you two want to
Yeah,
talk about that, that'd be great.
sure. I'll
I
I'll
can
take
spill the
over tonight, Merch
beans.
God. Or do you want to spill them, bud?
I
Spill them.
can't I can't give a lot of detail, but I can tell you one thing. New revamped design hoodie and new product alert t-shirts coming. Gus, take it
T-shirts,
away.
T-shirts. All right,
Gus, who helped you
sweet.
out with the logo? Who helped you out with the new logo?
It was a Blake man. Do you remember Lakuda? I got a of Northern
Certified,
Tackle,
certified beauty,
certified beauty.
Tish?
beautish for sure.
I think it's pronounced Lakota of Northern Tackle. Like I think it has a D,
Northern.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
on
nerdy.
Instagram, yeah, did a great job. We're gonna be kind of utilizing that. Got some new pint glasses with it for all you beer drinkers, water, anything. Drink anything. Want a pint glass? It's gonna look sweet. Stickers are gonna be coming. Some new ones with that revamped kind of logo, or we'll call it
That's
like
just
an
the alternative. Yeah,
alternate.
alternative.
Sorry,
Yeah,
not
alternate.
new,
Yeah.
alternate. Always
Yeah, we
gonna
have
have the
our
Mustangs on tap.
main logo, and Valentine's Day right around the corner for all our lady listeners out there looking to get your man something nice for Valentine's Day. I don't even know if it's gonna be ready by then. Gus, do you even know when
Mm.
Valentine's Day is?
Not anymore. I'm just kidding. No, it actually, I think the turnaround could be pretty quick. Well, the stickers and pint glasses are gonna be here soon. Those are ordered. We're just finalizing the what you call it, like the design, the proofs, going back and forth so that we know exactly what we're ordering. Because when you buy in bulk, you don't want one little thing wrong, then all of a sudden you end up with this quantity of something. We want to make sure it's right, get the right sizes and all that stuff, get some cool colors. But yeah, we'll have two colors of t-shirts. We're gonna have for sure one. We really hope two colors of hoodies again. We're going with so the original ones were, I believe it was like Lane 7 or something like that. It was kind of a heavyweight hoodie, which I'm wearing one right now. I absolutely love this thing in the winter, but I mean, realistically, it can get a little bit heavy. We're just kind of going with more of a traditional hoodie, like maybe the one you'd get right off the shelf from like Hooked and Tagged or something like that. Um, Still high quality. We're not, jumping for something, low quality and lowballing people. We want something out there that can last, that you can wear all year and season out in the water, fish it through some harsh conditions and all that stuff. So good quality. I'm really excited about it. We all are. And for sure we'll have it for uh, Minnesota and Wausau. We'll be at the Wausau show all weekend at the Wisconsin Musky Expo. That's what that one's called. And online, of course. And we'll tell you on the socials when it drops online. The links, it's going to be on www.sugsfishing.com, which there's hats still available right now. I'll have those with me throughout the shows. I believe it's just hats available right now. The hoodies from last year have been gone for a while. But yeah,
Thank you all.
I think one of the hoodies will kind of be more of like a limited edition type of thing, because the two hoodies actually I think are going to do two different designs for both of them. So
We've been
one
cooking.
might be in we're
We've been
cooking.
cooking. This idea
So
started in like August or September and
certainly.
has gone through about 15 renditions to
Oh yeah.
get to where they're at right now.
Still
And
going.
Yeah, it
it's
wasn't
still
just
going a
one
little bit, a
logo
little
made
tweaks.
and then we ordered merch. This was like many times going back and forth, many different logos of like, yeah, maybe, sure, could work. And then we're like, oh yeah, that's the one. That's gonna look sweet. Let's, cook something up and we hope we hope
Gus,
this one.
what would you say our most popular sizes for the Muskies on Tap community from our last round of sweatshirts?
Um I think it was large and double XL.
Okay.
We had a good mixture.
So
So
we
I think
had,
XLs
So
were
funny,
we had
Max.
XLs left of gray and black last time was like last that we had, and like the mediums and larges went quick, and same with the double XLs. And then yeah, I don't know. And I've talked with Jeff Widman at Team Rhino, to get a good idea. I'm like, what percentage should we do for sizes? And he's like, I've been doing merch for a long time, and there's really no rhyme or reason, even in colors and for women or men, just randomly like a size will just go there, and then you bulk up on that size for the next time, and then the other ones go. So,
I'm just saying, 2025, we're getting skinny this year. It's the year of the two
oh yeah,
pack.
yeah.
It's gonna happen.
Say two
Might,
pack.
we might see me slipping into a large every once in a while this year. I don't know.
Ain't no
Stay
way.
tuned.
Are you gonna be tarps off on some of those warm days or not?
Well, it's not. No, I mean, we're pumping merch. I'm not going to
Oh
be
yeah.
talking about being tarps off.
You get
Fair
yourself
enough.
a little mott chest tattoo though, then you can really pop the tarp.
Yeah, that's definitely going
Might,
to be something that
might
goes.
be
Not
a ways
forever.
out from that. Yeah.
Yeah, don't think
Wouldn't
I
that
need
be
to be
crazy if
getting tats right now.
I was gonna say what if there was a fan that got a tattoo of Mosey's on tap? That would be unreal. Not
Free
egging
merch
anybody
forever.
on to do
Free
that.
merch
Not
forever.
egging free merch forever.
Definitely do not get a tattoo.
At what cost though, Brian? At what cost?
That would be incredible. All right,
Yeah.
boys. Well, I think next week should be coming live with another great guest. Might have some New Year's resolutions next week because we were a little bit underprepared this week for that, but might reflect back on our New Year's resolutions from last year as well, and maybe see how we lived up to them. I have a feeling like it's gonna be a tough listen back. I got to go back and check that
Hmm.
out to see what what our lofty goals were for the 2024 season and if
Oh
we
yeah.
if we met them or not. I can't even remember what
I
they
don't
were.
know.
I have no idea,
Stay tuned.
which is hilarious.
Probably to catch a
Yeah.
50
Stay
inch
tuned.
dry. That didn't happen.
Yeah,
Right.
2025 will hopefully be the year that spend some time on some better bodies of water with that stuff and
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
we'll see.
yeah.
Maybe that 50 will happen. I don't know. That's tough out here.
All righty, everybody.
Well, hey, got to plug the socials, man.
Shit.
Yeah, yeah. We got Muskies on Tap, Facebook and Instagram. Go give that a follow. Um, we'll be posting on there with our guests, some other stuff. So like, share, comment, do all that. Probably on the Facebook one more so. We'll be putting out more like questions and stuff because the comments on Facebook are much easier than Instagram, that outlet. And then, you can follow myself, Suggs Fishing on Instagram and Facebook, Suggs Fishing Guide Service. Find the merchandise that we have right now and the future merchandise and all my guiding info at www.sugsfishing.com, SUGS fishing, or add me as a friend on Facebook, Gus Manty. Hope to see you out in the water. So thanks for everybody listening in, Brian. Take us
Alrighty,
away.
modheads. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Muskies on Tap. Shout out to Steve Genson for coming on. An absolute gem of an interview. Hope everyone enjoyed that. But ladies and gentlemen, huge weekend coming ahead for us here. You might be wondering why it's just ice fishing. Well, guess what? The Ohio State Buckeyes are in the Final Four now. We played 2 games to win the national championship here. We're taking down the big state in Texas. The only thing bigger than Texas is this L we're about to hand them, guys.
Roll
Hammer
me
the
up,
house in
bro.
Ohio
Packer
State.
talk,
Cover.
Packer talk.
They're covering every game on the way
What about
to
Pack?
the national
What happened to the
championship.
Pack?
And the Packers gonna have to play the Eagles. They're probably gonna get smoked. Embarrassing last game of the season against
Jeez.
Chicago. 1-5 in conference play. Can they beat a good team? We'll find out.